is the third. Okay, so we have a rectangular field. We are told that the length is twice as long as the width, correct? And we are told that the perimeter, so two pieces of information here. Number one, length is twice as long as the width. That's the first piece of information. And the second piece of information is perimeter is 120 yards. Very good question. And the question or the problem is asking us to determine the length and the width. How do I start working on this problem? How many variables does the problem have? Two variables, right? The length and the width. Good. So then we have to find how many relationships, in other words, how many equations that translate into equations for two variables. How many equations do we have to write?
One. It's one equation, right?
Two variables. If I only have one equation, I will never be able to solve. So two variables, mandatory two equations. Four variables, mandatory four equations. 10 variables, mandatory 10 equations. Otherwise, I can't solve. Good. So can anyone give us the first equation? I denoted the variables by L and W. You can say, I don't like L and W, I want X and Y. It's fine too, whatever you want. So can anyone give us the first equation? The length is twice as long as the width. I want one equation that expresses or goes to or covers this particular sentence, translates the sentence into mathematical terms. How do I write that?
Would it be P equals 2?
We're not you are not there. We are here. So we are right here.
L2x
Length
equals 2W.
Awesome. All we have to do is just read the sentence maybe several times. Maybe you will not click the first time. So just try to read it and say length is twice the width. Are we in agreement with this first sentence, first equation? Yes? Good. So this is done. Now I need the second equation. What would the second equation be? Now we have to remember what the perimeter of a rectangle is.
120.
Formula, I should have said, sorry. What is the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle?
2L plus 2W.
Exactly. So this is 2L plus 2W is?
120.
That's it. Awesome. Here's what I do next. I highly recommend it. Remember, there are two keywords in this class and in any algebra or math class. What are those two keywords that we talked about? Go back to your notes. You have it. You have them in your notes. What are those two keywords? Because they have to. Say it again.
Terms and factors.
True, but the keywords on actions, I should have said. You're right. In the back of our minds, whenever we work on a math problem, we have to have two keywords, action words, I should have said, action words in our mind. What are those action words? Okay, let's write them again. And thank you for correcting me. They are action keywords. You're right. Action keywords are factor, And the other one, or 2 factor if you want, verb. And the other one is to These are the 2 keywords that are always fresh in my mind. Anytime I solve anything, to factor and to simplify. So I go back to our system. We're going to talk about that soon. This is a system of 2 linear equations in 2 variables. System. Okay. Can I simplify the first equation, or is the first equation fully simplified?
Simplified.
Fully simplified. There is nothing I can do to it. What about the second equation? So I'm going to copy the first one. Is there any way I can simplify the second equation to make it easier to handle?
4x equals 120.
Not yet. Can I simplify the second equation in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think so.
All 3 terms have a common factor that I could get rid of. Which common factor is that?
Divide by 2.
Exactly. So I will always simplify as much as I can so I can make my life easier. So can anyone simplify the second equation, both sides by 2, and tell us what to write?
L plus W equals 60.
Excellent, excellent. Now, the method that we are going to discuss in this class, it's a substitution. What do I substitute and where? What do you think I would do next? A wild guess. Shouldn't be that bad. What do you think I would do next? Substitution means replacing, right? I substitute this with this. With what and where?
L with 2W.
Exactly. Right here. L equals 2W. If it equals to 2W, I can replace it in the second equation by 2W. What will be the second equation now? How it will look if I do that? Instead of this, I write what? Awesome. And then plus, and then plus W, and then equals, and then 60. Now this I know how to solve. These I cannot. They have 2 variables, and I can solve them. But now I substituted or manipulated a little bit in such a way that I created an equation I can solve. So how much is 2W plus W? That's the first step, right? We have to combine like terms. Yes? We agree? Okay, the left-hand side is equals 60. So then W equals
20.
measurement unit. Without the measurement unit, it's not complete. Yards. Good. So I determine W. If I have W that is 20, now I also know L. How much will L be? Awesome. Very good. That's it. Anything else? Other questions for me? So then L equals 40 yards. It is mandatory in a system, every time I solve a system of equations, to go back to the system and make sure that the solution works. What is the solution then? The solution is L, comma W, which is 40, comma 20. So I have to go back and check. Okay, so when I put 20 in here, 20 times 2, I get 40. Yes, I do. When I put in 40 here and 20 here, do I get 60? Yes, I do. So I know that this is the only solution. No one can find another solution. If this one works in a system of linear equations with a unique solution like this one, we cannot find another. Melissa, is this okay? Is it? Better? Okay, very good. Other questions? Anything else that you worked on? Yes, please. Yes. Okay, they have a reception reception. So William and Deborah are celebrating their 20th anniversary with a reception. They have budgeted $2,500. If you'd like to write it down for me, $2,500 they budgeted. If the reception hall charges $80 cleanup fee, plus $39, so $80 cleanup fee, and $39 per person. Find the greatest number of people they can invite and will stay, and they still stay within the budget. Thank you. Perfect problem. Good. So we have a budget of $2,500. We want to invite a number of people unknown. Number of people. We know that there is a one-time cleanup fee. And we know that they charge us, I think it was $39 per person. 39? Perfect. So the question is, how many people can we invite? We are limited. Our budget is only $2,500. And we know that we have to pay the $80 for the cleanup fee. They won't want to let us clean it up. And they charge us $39 per person. What is the total, or I should say, what is the maximum number of people that we can invite to this reception? Now, this is a typical situation in which we have to present an inequality. So, whatever the cost, we incur, it must be what? So this and this, how do I compare these two? What symbol should I have here? No.
Less than or equal to.
Right. Right? I want to stay within the budget. It can be a little bit less, but it cannot exceed the budget. And it can be equal. But it's an inequality. So typical inequality. Not an equation. Good. Okay, so let's see. There are two components that make up the cost. What are those two components?
Per person cost and the one-time cleanup cost.
Awesome. How do I write that?
Be 39x plus 80.
Do we all agree with 39x plus 80? Right? 80 is fixed. If we invite one person or 20 people, we still have to pay the 80. Not connected to the number of people. But we do pay $39 per person, so it's 39 times the number of people. Is that clear? Good. Now everything reduces, or from this point on, we only apply the concept of solving the linear inequality. What would be the first step? Awesome. Subtract 80, or if you want to move it to the other side with the opposite sign. So this is 39x less than or equal to 2420. 2,500 minus 80. Awesome. Next step, and the final step, I should say, towards solving for x. Yes. So I divide 2420 divided by 39, and I get 62.05. If you remember last time, we refreshed our memory on how to present the solution of an inequality using interval notation. In this case, I can't. What does that mean? So normally, for an inequality like this, I will write the solution what? From negative infinity all the way to 0.05, right? So like negative infinity, do not write this. However, how come that I cannot write it like this? Because we're talking about
Money.
people.
People.
It's the same thing, right? So pretty much. So I cannot express something like this. And I cannot even express it in an interval notation. If I'm asked to present the solution in interval notation, I would not be able to. So I will say x can be 0, 1, dot, 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 exactly 3 dots, comma, what? All the way till
62.
62. Another way of writing the answer is max, how much? Or how many?
62.
62 people. But I would not be able, for such an inequality concerning people, I would not be able to use interval notation. So if I'm asked to find the maximum number of people, I will just plug in 62. Very good question. This is okay. Any questions? Yes?
I don't really understand the interval notation.
How do we say it again?
Like, I don't understand the interval notation.
Well, if I'm asked to write interval notation for something less than 1, from negative infinity to 1. If I'm asked to write something, an interval notation for x greater than or equal to 0, from 0 to infinity. If I'm asked to present something between negative 5 and 10, negative 5 and 10 is the interval notation. Now, it depends whether the equal symbol is there or not. I will use a bracket if the equal symbol is there, and I will not use a bracket if this equal symbol is not there. So, for example, something like this will translate into a bracket here, but parenthesis at 10. If I have x greater than or equal to 10, then I will start at 10 with a bracket because of the equal symbol to infinity. All numbers greater than or equal to 10 start at 10 and go to infinity. If I have, for example, less than or equal to, or just less than negative 3, I will have to start at negative infinity and stop at negative 3 without a bracket. So from negative infinity to negative 3. Infinities are not numbers. I cannot use a bracket on an infinity. I don't know what infinity means. And here I cannot use a bracket because I don't have the equal symbol. That's all there is about interval notation. There's nothing else. Other questions for me? Anything else you would like to ask? Anything else? Okay, so let's work on this. Maybe not on everything, if you think that everything is clear. Again, if you encounter something, thank you. If you encounter something that is clear, we can move on. So are we working on the first problem, or we move on? So I know where we are. Are we working on the first problem?
Yes.
Okay. Because I would like to be, if possible, to finish this in an hour so we can move on.
Can I do it on this sheet and then give it to you?
I'm not collecting this, so you do whatever you want. This is our classwork for preparation for the test. Do whatever you want with it. You don't have to return it to me. Kathleen is here, Melissa is here, Cassius is here, Kirsten, Shelby. Yeah, Shelby's not. Whitney's here, Keante's here, Ruby's here, Corey's here. Oh, the other Melissa is not here. Hubby's not here. Nicole and Chris, yeah. Do we need more time on the first one, or we have an answer already?
An answer.
Awesome. Just that we want to put the minus in front of the fraction line now. Okay, okay. Where are we going? Awesome. Slowly replace x by -2 first. Slowly.
Okay.
I know it's very easy to do make some calculations, but nope. Make some calculations.
So is the problem that I not fully show the work?
No. The problem is that you did something in your head without looking at it, and it's wrong.
Oh, okay. All right. I just want to make sure.
Yes. How are we doing? Nope. How are we doing? Awesome. It's just that I want the negative sign now in front of the fraction. No, don't erase it. Just equal again with minus in front of the fraction line. Awesome. How are we doing? Nope. Okay, so hit and miss here and there. So let's do this together. -3x squared minus 2x plus 15 divided by 3x plus 1. First, I have to replace everything step by step by -1 and -2, and I have to look at it. Take a deep breath after you replace it, okay? So, -3, I need to use parentheses. -2, I need to use parentheses, plus 15, divided by 3, I need to use parentheses, plus 1. This is the mandatory first step. Mandatory first step. Next, I ask myself, what is the first step in simplifying this? And I have to start with the what? With the exponent, not parentheses, but to the exponent. The power is first, power. So this gets replaced. And I will copy, if I have any difficulties with this, I will copy everything slowly. -3 multiplied by, how much is -2 squared? 4. Minus 2 times -2 plus 15 divided by 3, -2 plus 1. Okay, now we are performing which operation? What is next in line? There are no parentheses. The parentheses are only used to separate operations here. So I have to multiply. Have to multiply this, and I have to multiply this, and I have to multiply this. This is my next step. Please multiply -3 plus by 4 and tell me what to write. Please multiply -2 by -2 and tell me what to write. +4 plus 15. Please multiply 3 by -2 and get
It's +6.
One more time.
-6.
Good. Plus 1. Now the top, you do whatever you want. Here, this is what I want to do. I want to do 19 minus 12. Well, 19 minus 12 is 7. And here I have -5. This is okay, but it's not fully simplified. Positive divided by negative, now I have to write the equal symbol and put the minus in front of the fraction line. This is the final answer. You don't have to take the integers out, but if you want to, you can change it into a mixed number. So then this will be -1 and 2/5. But there is no need to do this. This is good enough. That improper fraction is fine. If you had difficulties with this, please pay attention to your mistakes, learn from your mistakes, and say, make yourself a note. I made this mistake, and I understand now why, blah, blah, blah. Chris?
Are you supposed to do parentheses before exponents?
If you have, very good question. Only if you have operations in parentheses. 2 minus 5. But if you only
if
have,
it's just a number by itself, you don't
if it's a
put
number by itself, the grouping symbol is there only to separate the multiplication from subtraction.
That's what screwed me up on that problem.
Okay, so very careful on that.
Yeah.
So we do say parentheses first, but only if I have 5 minus 3 plus 2 multiplied by 3, blah, 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 in parentheses. Otherwise, parentheses are only there to separate operation symbols, multiplication from subtraction. I cannot have them sitting one next to each other without parentheses.
Okay.
That's the only way to clarify things if we work on them. So we're working on the second one, right? Since I already talked for a few minutes, do we have the answer for the second one? Yes? I'm glad you do, because I didn't. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. 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 Yes. However, it's better to write in the fraction form. And it has to be negative, because otherwise the product will not be positive 1. It has to be negative, otherwise the product will not be positive 1. Of course, the product has to be positive 1. That's okay. Okay, how are we doing? Are we going to do any work in our next class? And you're going to hold the time. So I'm worried. Okay. When we distribute, we have to distribute to all. This one changes into a negative, this one changes into a negative, but this one changes into. Yes? We're working on this. Move on.
So should I just keep moving?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep moving. Yes. So let's move on. How are we doing? Yes. Okay. How are we doing? Good. Okay, so I see we have pretty much no difficulties with number 2. So -3 2x plus 3y minus 5z. So this is -6x, -9y plus 15z. I think everyone got this correct. And then the multiplicative inverse of -2/3 obviously is -3/2 because the product has to equal 1, not -1, right? So if one number is positive, the other one has to be positive if they are multiplicative inverses of each other. If one is negative, the other one has to be negative so that the product is 1. Now I would like us to talk about number 4. Have we encountered the 2 keywords, complementary supplementary angles. Have you seen this in MyLabs Plus, in any of the problems that you worked on? Complementary angles, supplementary angles, yes? Is that a yes or is that a no? Not yet. Okay, so let's talk about it anyway. Two angles are considered complementary if angle A plus angle B equals 90 degrees. So a picture of such a situation would be, this is an angle of 90 degrees, 90-degree angle, and this will be A and this will be B. So when we add A and B, we get 90 degrees. Therefore, A and B are called complementary angles. So A and B are complementary angles. What do you think supplementary angles will be? Just a wild guess. Angles that add up to what? Exactly. So this is a 180-degree angle. And now this time angle A and B. This is, let's say, angle A. And let's say this is angle B. Their sum will be 180. When two angles sum up to 180, they are called supplementary. Exactly. So in this case, A and B are supplementary angles. Perfect. So now we can read our problem. Two angles are supplementary. What is the equation that you will write immediately if two angles are supplementary? You don't have to call them A and B. You can call them X and Y. You can name them the way you like. Say it again. Very good. So when we read this first sentence, two angles are supplementary, this is what I write immediately, that X plus Y equals 180. One angle measures 25 degrees. Find the measure of the other angle. So what is the measure of the other angle then? Done. Perform the operations with mixed numbers and fully simplify the answer. That's our next step. So 2 1/2 minus 4 2/3. Since we have not looked at a problem like this, I would like to show you the way I like to present it, or the way I like to do it. And you choose the method you like, of course. Are we ready for this, or you still want to work on it? Yes, you can put back the integers in. It's really not required when you add and subtract mixed numbers. So these are called mixed numbers. That's another terminology for the notebook of terminologies. So what does this really mean? It means 2 plus 1/2. minus parentheses. What does this really mean? Basically 4 plus 2/3.
Why parentheses?
Because if I don't put parentheses, I will only subtract 4 instead of subtracting both pieces. I must subtract both pieces because of the negative in front. So now I distribute. So it's 2 plus 1/2 minus 4 minus 2/3. 2 with minus 4 is definitely negative 2. And now I'm left with these two fractions. I know how to add and subtract fractions. What is the least common denominator of these two?
6.
Yes, so I have 1/2 minus 2/3. The least common denominator will be 6. What do I multiply the top of the first one by?
3.
Awesome. What do I multiply the top of the second one by?
2.
2. So can anyone tell us what to write up here? 3 minus
4.
minus 4. Very good. So then now the top is 3 minus 4, which is,
1.
careful,
Negative.
right? So this is negative 1 over 6, and I have to write it as negative 1 over 6. I cannot just leave the negative at the top. Negative over positive is negative, exactly what we had with that negative 7/5. So I'm going to add it in here as is. Since both pieces are negative, this is negative 2 and 1/6, and it's done. You can say this is too much work. I'd rather go back, put the integers back in, and then at the end simplify. Fine too. I'm fine with that method as well. So the second possibility, I'll say or, in dealing with mixed numbers would be 2 and 1/2 minus 4 and 2/3. I just copied the problem. Let me ask you if you have questions on the previous step, and then I'll show you the other method. Any questions on the previous step or previous method? Is it clear? Yes? Any questions, please? Okay, so now if you want to put the integers back in, how do we do this? 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is? Awesome, 5/2. Minus 4 times 3 is 12 plus 2. Perfect. Very good. Again, the least common denominator. You can say this is much easier, it's shorter. I agree. Yeah. I would have to agree with you if you say
I did, but I got different answer.
not possible. The answer has to be the same. So let's do this together. So the least common denominator, 6. This one needs? Very good. This one needs? 2. So now, what do I have at the top?
15 minus 28.
15 minus 28. Very good. 15 minus 28 is negative?
13.
Negative 13 divided by 6. Negative in front. 13 divided by 6. 2 integers and 1/6. Because 6 times 2 is 12. 12 plus 1 is 13.
I did not turn it into this fraction. I did it negative 13 over 6. That's the answer I got.
Say it again.
I did negative 13 over 6.
Okay.
That was the
Yeah. Well, if I'm given, if the starting point is mixed number, then the answer has to be as a mixed number. Okay. The other one, negative 2 and 2/3 divided by 3 and 1/6. When I divide and multiply mixed numbers, I have absolutely no choice. This is the only way. I have to put the integers back in. There is no way around that. Here I had another way. Yeah, more longer, maybe more difficult. But here I have no choice. There's no other way. I have to put the integers back in. So let's put the integers back in and see what we get. Are we finished with that?
Yeah.
So when we put the integers back in, yes, and yes, Yes and yes. Yes. Always simplify before you multiply first, because it's easier than going back and simplifying later.
Okay.
Always simplify before you multiply. Yes. Good. How are we doing? Okay. How are we doing? How are we doing? Okay. How are we doing? We have to talk about that. So the list is very long, so we're working on this one. Yeah.
Hey, I got a question.
Yes.
This might be a little silly, but when I'm trying to make this a
Improper fraction.
improper fraction,
Right, from a mixed number into an improper
Right.
fraction.
when I multiply these two, does it remain negative because I'm doing a positive times a negative?
No, the negative stays outside.
Okay.
The negative will wait.
Oh, okay.
2 times 3 plus 2, the negative stays there.
Okay, so I apply the negative or the sign after I'm done
Yes,
everything.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Because the whole number is negative,
Right.
so the fraction must be negative.
Okay.
Okay?
Mhm.
How are we doing? Always simplify. That's not okay. Always simplify before you multiply. So greatest common factors should go away. Remember the two action, Lori corrected me and he's right. I never said that. Two action words, keywords that have to be in the back of our mind. What are they again? Exactly. Always. Always, you always want to see, it's just simply, at least one of those two words comes from real life. We want to simplify things, right? Simplify. And factor, because factoring is also simplifying.
I have a question.
Yes.
Since this is a division, since I got negative 8 over 3.
Yes. The negative has to be in front of the fraction line.
Oh,
Good. Good.
so is there a possibility I can change this to a multiplication sign?
You
and
have to.
put-
That's the way we divide fractions.
Yeah, and put 6 over 19.
You have to. That's the next step. Absolutely. Yes. So you change the division to multiplication, but you have to change this into a multiplicative inverse. You cannot just erase this into this. Once you change division to multiplication, you have to flip. It's a knot. And you always simplify before you multiply. Okay, so I think we are ready now to work on this. One question was very good. I would have probably never thought of saying that. Chris had this question. He said this: do I multiply negative 2 by 3 and then add 2? Because negative 2 times 3 will be negative 6. Negative 6 plus 2 will be negative 4. It's a very good question. I never ever thought of saying that. So when you have a minus in front of a mixed number, the minus is like this. So you finish whatever you're doing here and then you apply that minus. It's a very good question. And that's actually what Melissa has asked. She said, why did you put this in parentheses, right? Because everything in here, the 4 and the 2/3, get the negative sign. It's the same thing here. It's a very good question. So please remember, we multiply 2 by 3 and add 2, and then we say this is a negative number, so we copy the sign in front. So 2 times 3 is 6, 6 plus 2 is 8, so this is 8/3. Divided by 18 plus 1, 19 over 6. At this point, I know I'm dividing a negative number by a positive number, so the sign must be negative. So I copy it so I don't have to worry about it again. 8 over 3 stays as is, but the divisional fraction requires us to change it into a product and flip the second fraction. At this point, I refuse to multiply as long as there are factors and I want to simplify. Simplify. So I will simplify 3 and 6, 1 and 2, and now I will copy the negative symbol. 8 times 2, 16 divided by 19. And that's the final answer.
Oh, so it doesn't go back to mixed fraction?
It cannot be. It's not an improper
It's
fraction.
not.
It does not have a top that is bigger than the bottom so I can take integers out. If it had, yes, I would have agreed with you completely. It would have been, the answer should have been in mixed number form. Okay, now I want to talk about that next problem because, yes, Kristen? Oh, you wrote 4. Why did you write 4? 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. Okay, so let's talk about these numbers. So this is real number set. There is a bigger set than real numbers, but what we need right now is this one, real number set. Somewhere, not necessarily in the middle, there is a complete separation between rational and irrational. These are rational, irrational. What's the difference between the two of them? Rational is anything that can be written as a fraction with no approximation, like 1/2, 1.3. This can be written as a fraction with no approximation. Or 0.25, which is 0.25, 25, 25, 25, 25, 25. All these, of course, 5, because 5 is 5/1. Of course, -3, because -3 is -3/1. All these, of course, 0. All these are here. Now, what's in the other side here? Numbers like the square root of 3. That number cannot be presented in a fraction form without approximating it. Pi. Negative the square root of 2. So these are numbers that are called irrational. Inside rational numbers, we have 3 other subsets. So I have a subset of integers. Inside this subset, I have whole numbers. And inside of this subset, I have a smaller one called natural. Natural numbers are 1 through infinity, but so natural. They are 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth in the same pattern. Whole, there's 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. And integers, -3, -2, 0, 1, 2, 3, ... So now we can quickly answer question 6. Ready? So the square root of 3. What will you say about the square root of 3? What type of number is this? Irrational. And it's also what type of number? Awesome. The square root of 3 is irrational. but also inside real. Very good. Negative 2/3. What type of number is negative 2/3? That's the first one. What else?
Integer.
It's not an integer. Look here.
It's real.
Yes. It's a rational number and it's a real number. Awesome. What about 0?
0 would be a whole number.
0 is a whole number. What else? Yes.
An
What
integer.
else? It's a whole number. It's an integer. It's a rational number and it's also,
Would it be a row?
of course, everything is real. Yes. Very good. So 0, whole, integer, rational, and real. Okay. And the last one, 14. What type of number is 14?
It's a whole number.
Even before that, it's a natural, indeed whole, indeed rational, and what else?
An integer.
Real,
It's not an integer.
an integer. Very good. Okay, back page. Find the prime factorization of 144.